Now look, a couple of years back, you would easily say that the Yamaha Tenere 700 was the best affordable adventure bike on the market. You get a good engine, it's got genuine off-road capabilities, and all at a launch price of just over 8 grand. But fast forward to 2022, and actually the base model has crept up and it's now touching 10 grand. And so although they're undoubtedly still great bikes, I think that puts them above the budget category. Fortunately, we've got some great new bikes on the market though, including this, the Moto Morini X-Cape 650. It packs absolutely loads of features for your buck, and so in this video we're going to give it a thorough review, and at the end I'll tell you, is this the best budget adventure bike in 2022? So let's start off with the engine, and at the heart of it we've got this 650 parallel twin, and it doesn't make super exciting performance figures. 60 horsepower peak at 8,250 RPM and 54 Newton meters of peak torque. It's also got a 180 degree crank, so it gives it a bit of an agricultural sound, and so on the road I wouldn't say it's gonna knock your socks off, but it is based upon a proven design. It's economical, it's obviously fairly frugal to make, and it also gets an 18-litre tank, which gives it plenty of range. So really it's built to a price, and it's practical, and it does the job. There's just about enough power there, certainly for solo riding, to have a little bit of fun with it, but I wouldn't say it's like a standout feature of this bike. But perhaps what does look a little more impressive, at least on paper, is the chassis and componentry. Brakes are from Brembo, so we've got a pair of 2-pot calipers up front here. We also get braided hoses. Tires are from Pirelli, so they're Scorpion Rally STRs, which are a great on and off-road or light off-road tire. Suspension's fully adjustable, and you also get an upside-down fork from Marzocchi. And so for the 7 grand-ish price point, there's a lot of big name brands there, and the result of that is that out on the road it really is quite a nice handling bike. Braking's decent, especially the rear brake actually has plenty of power and a nice firm feel to it. The ride's perfectly good, and of course you can dial it into your exact preference. And then the tires, despite the knobbly appearance, you know, they really do perform well on the road. The only thing that holds it back a little bit is the weight. So you've got quite a chunky steel frame here, and that's one of the contributing factors to a 213 kilogram dry weight. So add fuel and fluids and you're looking at like 230. It's not massive, but you can definitely feel it, especially in relation to that fairly modest power output. And I'd also say that the geometry of the bike, so the rake and trail, definitely biases towards stability rather than like quick turning. But despite those extra few kilograms, you know, it really is a nice handling bike. I've thoroughly enjoyed riding it on the road. And also that slight bias towards stability is only going to be an asset if you're doing touring and motorway miles. So that's with regard to road riding, but what about off-road? Well, clearly they've designed in a lot of features that should help to make it decent off tarmac. You've got a 19-inch front wheel, so that ought to roll a little better over rougher surfaces. There's removable rubbers in the foot pegs, so you can get a little bit more grip. ABS is switchable, so you can turn it off if you want to slide the bike around a bit. The seat sort of progresses into the tank quite nicely here, so it is easy to maneuver around the bike. And also it's a decent standing position, so you can move the risers for the bars fore and aft a little bit, and that should allow you to get it dialed in for something that's both comfy sat and then stood up. So it's a decent setup, but would I say this is a bike that I'd love to take off-road, you know, extensively? Probably not. I think it's built for like a little bit of light gravel work, but realistically I think they're expecting most of the miles to be done on the road. They've put Adventuring here, so adventure touring. I think that indicates that they're trying to market as predominantly a road bike, but with a little bit of off-road ability. So I guess the next question then is, can it do the touring stuff? And there are quite a few nice features if you do want to do a bit of distance work. Like I say, plenty of range in the tank. You've also got a nice spacious saddle, and the pillion seat's not bad either. Also good to get those grab rails and the little rack here for attaching light bits of luggage. And there are some more extensive luggage options in the accessories catalog. In fact, I think you can get full 3-piece. Then you've got some relatively spacious ergonomics and also an adjustable windscreen, so it's a nice, easy to use mechanism. It's not a particularly wide screen, it doesn't give you loads of coverage, but for moderate stints in the saddle, there's enough wind protection there, so overall I think it'll make a decent lightweight tourer. The only drawback, like I say, are those power figures. It's plenty enough for solo riding, and I think you could do a decent day in the saddle. But if you did load it up with luggage, a passenger, I think it might feel a little underpowered if you're wanting to make good progress. Now, perhaps the most impressive aspect of this bike is here in the cockpit with all the tech that it offers. At this price point, I wouldn't expect to get such a large and punchy TFT display that's got these really nice layouts that make it quite fun to use. You've also got a menu system that allows you to tweak the settings and change the layouts. And you've also got a couple of riding modes, so ride and off-road. It's a cable throttle, so I don't think there are different throttle maps, but off-road does allow you to disable the ABS. It also gives you this cool layout for the rev meter, which is like a knobbly tire to give it more of that off-road vibe. Maybe it's a little bit kitsch for some people, but I actually really like it, especially when you're out on the road. It's nice and visible. And then there's a bunch of other features. So you can connect a phone and headset over Bluetooth, and that allows you to control music and media playback, but also phone calls. So you can accept or decline calls using the buttons on the switchgear. Reading the manual, I also found that there are some navigation features, but they're unfortunately only for the Chinese market. Fear not if you do want to add nav to a bike like this though, because our channel sponsors Beeline Moto offer this brilliant little device. Nice and clean, fits on pretty much any bike, and it has a brilliant, easy to use app with loads of great route planning features. I use it on pretty much all of my rides now, and so if you want to find out more about it, there's a link in the description. To finish it off, you've got a couple of USB ports up here, so that's handy if you do want to charge other devices, and also you get backlit switchgear, which might not sound like a massive deal, but when you've ridden a bike in the dark that's got loads of buttons and you can't quite find the right one, you'll find yourself wishing you had these. There's also LED lighting all round, and so I think the tech package, like I say, given the price point, is super impressive. And another aspect to this bike that I think is super impressive is the work they've done on the styling. Especially in this sort of red and black paint scheme, it sort of reminds me of like a baby Africa Twin, and I mean that in a good way. I think the Africa Twin is one of the best looking adventure bikes in the large capacity segment. It's designed in Italy and built in China, this bike, so you can see that typical Italian design flair that's gone into it, and it really does look like a bike that you'd be proud to own despite that price tag. And there are plenty of other bikes around this budget that you probably couldn't say the same for. Looks are subjective though, so let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. Now, as for the price, the standard bike with the cast wheels comes in at just under 7 grand, and then it's 500 quid on top of that for the spoked wheels. Personally, I think it's a really impressive list of features for your money. There's plenty of attention to detail with the finish, with loads of little Moto Morini logos dotted around the bike. And then also, like I say about the chassis, you've got some impressive componentry from some decent big name manufacturers. But how does it stack up to the competition? That is the big question. I think there are 3 main other choices when you're looking at an adventure bike of this sort of price range and ability. Number 1, the Honda CB500X. It does come in a little underpowered versus this bike, but then again it is a little more slender, and you can feel that in the handling. It's a great handling bike. Plus you've got that solid Honda build quality, and it really is a fantastic buy. I just think it maybe comes up a little bit less exciting than this bike because you don't get as many sort of techie features, and I wouldn't say that the looks, although they're fine, they're not quite as exciting as this bike. Perhaps closer in stature, you've got the Suzuki V-Strom 650. You get a genuine V-twin with that bike, and it really does have a nice sound and feel to it, and it also produces about 10 more horsepower peak, but I wouldn't say it's the best looking bike, and it doesn't also have much in the way of tech. And so again, there are certainly areas in which the X-Cape outdoes it. Probably closest is something like the Kawasaki Versys 650. The engine feels super similar. It's also got a 180 crank, and it's the same capacity, and it's not far off in terms of performance figures. And it also gets like a TFT dash with some phone connectivity features. That's the really tricky choice for me, and I think the Versys is a bit of an acquired taste in terms of aesthetics. This just brings a little bit more pizzazz that gets you excited to open the garage door to it. Does that make it the best of the bunch though? Does that make it the best budget adventure bike? Well, I think it really depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for that sort of hard hardcore off-road performance that the 10RA used to deliver at this price point, I don't think it really exists in the market anymore. This is probably about as close as you can get, and then it also gives you that fun tech package, which I know is appealing to some people and other people less bothered about, but if you do like that sort of stuff, then this is going to hit the mark, and also in this great looking package that I think is a core selling point of the Moto Morini for many people. As always, I'd love to know which bike you'd pick though down in the comments below, and if you're new here and you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.